What if the stranger you helped became your worst nightmare? The night I found him wasn't supposed to be special. It was one of those cold, spitting evenings when the rain comes down sideways and umbrellas seem useless. I was walking home from my late shift, coat buttoned to the neck, earbuds in, my world reduced to the soft hum of lo-fi and the rhythm of footsteps on wet pavement. And that's when I saw him, just standing there beneath the flickering streetlight, no umbrella, no motion, like the world had forgotten him. His hoodie was soaked through, the fabric clinging to his shoulders and arms, head bowed like he was hiding from something. But what got me was the way he stood, not drunk, not desperate, just blank. A stillness that didn't belong to the living. Something in me stopped. I walked past him at first, maybe 10, 15 steps. Then I turned back. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, cautiously, keeping a good distance between us. He didn't respond, not at first, just slowly lifted his head. His eyes met mine, blue, unblinking but distant, like he was looking through me. "I lost it," he said. "What'd you lose?" I asked. He didn't answer, just reached into the pouch of his hoodie and held something close to his chest. A small metal box, maybe the size of a deck of cards. I couldn't see it clearly, but he gripped it like it was the only thing anchoring him to the earth. I should have walked away, I know that now. But something about his stillness, the absurdity of him being out there in the storm, just standing like that, it cut through me. "My place is a couple blocks that way," I heard myself say. "You want to get dry? Eat something." He nodded slowly. That was all. We walked in silence. He didn't ask for anything, didn't shiver, didn't speak. He just followed, steps soft and measured, like he didn't want to leave a trace. When we got to my apartment, he hesitated at the door. I remember this vividly. He looked at the threshold like it meant something. Then he stepped in, bringing with him a smell of cold metal and rain. I offered him a towel. He took it wordlessly, dried his face, and sat on the edge of my couch without removing the hoodie. He never put the box down, not even when I handed him a bowl of instant ramen. He ate with one hand, the other resting protectively over his chest. "What's your name?" I asked. He stared at me. "Call me Aaron." I knew that wasn't his real name. I didn't press. I set up a blanket and pillow for him on the couch. "Just one night," I said, almost to reassure myself. He nodded again. "But that night I couldn't sleep. Not because I thought he'd harm me. I should have, maybe, but because of something deeper. A strange rhythm in the silence of the apartment, like the air was holding its breath. At one point, around 3 a.m., I got up to get water and found him sitting upright, eyes open, staring at the dark TV screen. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched the reflection of the empty room. I went back to bed. A part of me whispered this was a mistake, but I told myself I'd done a good thing. Just a human helping another. That's all it was. That's all I wanted it to be. By morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight leaked through my curtains in thin, apologetic stripes. I woke groggy, half expecting to find the couch empty. A quiet thank you note left behind, maybe some cash if he had any. But when I shuffled into the living room, rubbing my eyes, Aaron was still there. Awake, sitting cross-legged now, hands folded over the small metal box as if it were a sacred object. "You sleep at all?" I asked, attempting casual. He looked at me, blinked once, then said, "Enough." I noticed he had removed his shoes. They sat neatly by the door, laces tied together. But everything else, hoodie, box, that stillness, remained unchanged. I offered him coffee. He declined. "Need to get somewhere?" I asked, hinting that it was time for him to go. He nodded slowly. "Later." I didn't know what that meant, but I had work, and I didn't feel quite right about leaving him there alone. So I called in sick, something I rarely did. It wasn't just paranoia. It was curiosity now, this strange, lingering presence in my home. He wasn't behaving like a stranger, more like someone who had always belonged and I was the guest. By midday, he had started helping with chores. Without asking, he swept the floor, washed dishes, folded a pile of laundry I'd left on the armrest of the couch. Not in a rushed or dutiful way, but with careful, deliberate hands. Like every object mattered. When I asked why, he simply said, "It helps." That night, I made pasta. He ate more than the previous night, but never once set down the box. He kept it tucked under his arm as if losing contact with it would unravel something inside him. "I don't usually do this," I said. "Take people in." He nodded again, eyes not meeting mine. I figured. A pause. "But you still did." There was something in his voice, something quiet and wounded, not manipulative, just tired, and I realized I didn't know the last time he'd had a place to sit, to rest. Maybe never. I offered him another night, one more, just until he figured things out. He didn't smile, but his shoulders dropped slightly. Okay. Over the next few days he didn't leave, not once. I would go out for groceries, come back, and find him in the same spots, the kitchen sink, the couch, once kneeling on the floor organizing books I hadn't touched in years. He never touched my room though, he respected the door. Always, he started using my Wi-Fi, quietly, from his phone. Once I noticed him Googling names, but I couldn't see which ones. When I asked, he closed the tab and said, "Just checking." Checking what? I didn't ask. One night, as we sat quietly, TV playing a muted nature documentary, I asked him if he had anyone to call. Family, friends, a girlfriend. He didn't answer right away. Just tapped the box lightly with his fingers. "There used to be someone," he said. "But I don't think they'd pick up anymore." I didn't press. Instead, I started to notice something else. The more he stayed, the more the apartment changed. It wasn't that he was messy. He wasn't. But there was a stillness now that hadn't existed before, like time moved slower inside the walls. My clocks ticked a little quieter. My plants leaned strangely toward the hallway. And sometimes at night, I thought I heard whispering in the vents. It wasn't threatening. Just odd. Like living inside a dream you couldn't wake from. A week passed. Then another. He was still there. One morning, I found a note by the coffee machine. Not in my handwriting. It read, "Don't worry, I'll go soon." But he didn't, and I didn't ask him to. Because somehow, the idea of the apartment without him now seemed lonelier than it had before. By the third week, something unspoken had settled between us. A rhythm, a quiet coexistence. He still slept on the couch, still kept the box close, still rarely spoke unless spoken to. But it was like we had an unspoken contract. I wouldn't ask about his past, and he wouldn't invade mine. And yet, it wasn't sustainable. I knew it, even if I didn't want to admit it. The days were becoming a blur. I'd stopped counting how long he'd been there. My friends began to ask why I never went out. One even offered to swing by unannounced. I brushed them off. "Work's been crazy," I'd say. "Just laying low." But the truth was, I didn't know how to explain Aaron. He wasn't a roommate. Wasn't a friend, exactly. He was just there. And more than anything, I was afraid of what would happen if I told him to leave. There was never any threat from him, not overtly, but his presence had weight, not physical, emotional, like if he disappeared, something would be off-kilter in the world. Still, I had to say something. One night, while I was folding laundry, I finally asked, "So, what's the plan?" He was sitting at the table, box in front of him, tracing its corners with a finger. "What plan? I tried to keep my tone light. Are you thinking of heading somewhere soon? Job stuff? Place to stay long-term?" He didn't look up. "Nowhere to go," he said, and I remember the way he said it. Not as if it were tragic, but factual, like gravity or rain. "Do you want help finding somewhere?" He finally looked up. "I don't think you understand." And maybe I didn't, but I wanted to, so I let it go. Days slipped by. He started changing small things. He rearranged my books alphabetically, fixed a squeaky cabinet I'd long stopped noticing. He began doing the grocery shopping online, never asking but somehow getting everything right. Down to the brand of almond milk I preferred. But it wasn't just helpful things. He started unplugging the microwave at night, lining the salt and pepper shakers at perfect right angles, placing coasters under every glass without fail, even when he was alone. There was a moment, one small, quiet moment, when I found him staring at the window in the hallway. Not out the window, but at the frame, like he was listening. "What are you looking at?" I asked. He didn't answer. Eventually he said, "This place is clean." "That's good." I didn't know what he meant, and then one morning I noticed something. My mail had been sorted, neatly opened, items stacked in categories, bills, junk, personal. I never asked him to do that. One envelope, unopened, sat on top of the pile. It was from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. The return address had been scratched out, replaced with a single line of text, written in that same careful hand. "She still remembers you." I knew instantly it wasn't from my friend. I confronted him. "Did you mess with my mail?" He didn't deny it. "I thought you'd want to know." "That's not your decision to make." He didn't apologize. Just said, "I know." It should have been the final straw. It should have been enough for me to demand he leave. But I didn't, because a small, shameful part of me didn't want him to go. It wasn't just that he kept the place tidy or cooked or remembered how I liked my tea. It was that I'd started to need the silence he brought with him. I'd started to fear what my own thoughts might sound like in a truly empty home. One night, I stood at my bedroom door and watched him sleep. Still clutching that box, arm curled around it like a child and their favorite toy. He looked peaceful, younger, even, and I wondered, had someone once watched him like this? Had someone once promised to protect him? Because he didn't seem like a danger. He seemed like someone broken in a very specific way, and for reasons I couldn't yet name, I couldn't let him go. It started with the murmuring. Soft at first, so soft I thought it was my own half-dreaming mind inventing sounds in the night, but it wasn't. It was him, Aaron, lying on the couch, body still, breath even, but lips moving, whispering something too low to catch. The first night I heard it, I brushed it off. Nightmares, maybe, talking in his sleep. But then it happened again, and again, always between 3 and 4 in the morning, Always in that same tone, urgent like he was pleading, and always gripping that box tighter than before, like if he let go even for a second, something inside it might escape. I started to stay awake deliberately, lying on my side, listening. It was never full sentences, just fragmented words. Names I didn't recognize, a countdown once, a string of numbers. Then one night, he whispered my name, clear, crisp, not a hallucination. He said it like it was a warning. I sat up, turned on the lamp. He stirred, eyes flicking open for a second, met mine and then closed again. Like nothing had happened. I told myself I was imagining things, that this wasn't what it looked like, but the feeling lingered. During the day, he seemed normal, polite, quiet. He made soup, he fixed my shower head, he organized the fridge, he smiled once when I made a bad joke. But I began to catch moments, flashes. He'd pause at mirrors, not to look at himself, but as if he was checking to see if something else was looking back. He began standing in the hallway at odd hours, not moving, just listening. He never went outside. Never, not once in nearly a month. "Why don't you get some air?" I asked once. He didn't answer. Just turned his head slowly, eyes distant, as if I'd suggested something dangerous. "I can't," he said eventually. "They'll notice." He didn't answer. That night, I found him sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, whispering again. But this time, it wasn't to the box, it was to the vent, and I swear, I heard something whisper back. That was the night I decided to find out what was in the box. I waited until he left the living room, just long enough to shower, a rare event. He always took the box into the bathroom with him, but this time, he'd left it on the coffee table. Maybe he forgot, maybe he wanted me to look. Either way, I found myself standing over it, heart racing, hands trembling. It was heavier than I expected, cold, like it had just come from a freezer. I ran my thumb along the latch, no lock. But as I opened it, I heard the water shut off. I froze. The box creaked open just a few centimeters, enough for me to glimpse the contents: a stack of old photographs, yellowed at the edges, a few slips of paper, a chain, and then his voice. "Don't." I turned. He stood in the doorway, wet hair dripping onto the floor, towel wrapped around his shoulders. His eyes weren't angry, they were terrified. "You shouldn't have touched it," he said. I backed away, slowly. "What is it, Aaron?" He walked over, gently lifted the box from the table and closed it, pressed it to his chest. "It's not about what's in it," he said softly. "It's about what it remembers." That night, we didn't speak again. He slept with the box crowded to his chest, like always. But I didn't sleep. Because for the first time, I realized I didn't know who or what I had let into my home. After that night, everything shifted. Aaron didn't confront me, he didn't yell or pack his things, but he changed. Subtly, he stopped doing small chores, he spoke even less, and most telling of all, he stopped making eye contact. The box never left his side now, not even when he showered. He wore it under his hoodie, strapped against his chest with something I couldn't see, like a bandolier for a soldier. One morning, I woke up to find every mirror in the apartment covered, my bathroom mirror, the one in the hallway, even the reflective surface of the microwave door. He used sheets, towels, duct tape, sloppy, rushed. When I asked, he didn't answer. Just mumbled something about reflections being dangerous when they know you've seen them. I told myself this was paranoia, that he was slipping into something deeper than just trauma, maybe a psychotic break, maybe something untreated, unnamed. But a part of me, deep, quiet, was afraid he wasn't wrong. I started noticing strange things. The lights in the apartment would flicker, but only when he was nearby. My laptop crashed twice in one day, showing lines of static before rebooting. I lost an entire folder of photos. Corrupted. Gone. Then there were the whispers. At first I thought it was just him, still asleep, talking. But then I heard them when he wasn't even home. I'd be brushing my teeth and hear a soft voice behind me, "He lied." Or folding laundry and hear from the closet, "It's not just a box." The air felt heavier, like the walls were holding a breath that never released. I told myself to confront him again. I rehearsed the conversation, practiced my tone in the mirror. Firm, but kind. But every time I saw him sitting there, still as ever, clutching that box like it held the last piece of his soul, I lost the nerve. Instead, I started searching. I waited for him to fall asleep, then quietly searched his backpack, his jacket pockets. Nothing out of the ordinary. No ID, no wallet, just scraps of paper with dates and initials scribbled on them. Some torn, some water damaged beyond recognition. Then I found it under the couch cushion. A slip of paper, clean and crisp, folded neatly. I unfolded it. It was a sketch, drawn in pencil, delicate and careful. A woman's face, mid-30s, short hair, eyes that seemed familiar. Below it, "Don't let her speak first. If she asks for me, lie." The next day, I found him standing by the door, fully dressed, hoodie zipped, box hidden beneath. "I'm going out," he said. It was the first time he'd said those words. "You'll be back?" He paused. "If I'm not, keep the door locked after sunset." Then he left. I watched from the window as he walked down the street, stiff and slow, like each step was calculated. I wanted to follow him. I didn't. When he was gone, I lifted the couch cushion again. Beneath it, taped to the frame, was another note. It read, "Don't open the box if I disappear. It doesn't stop at pictures." That night, he returned. But something about him had changed. His hoodie was wet at the hem. There were scratches on his neck. His eyes were bloodshot. I didn't ask. He didn't offer. We sat in silence for hours. I think we both knew what was coming, but neither of us had the courage to say it. I looked at him once, long and hard. He didn't notice? Or maybe he just pretended not to. It was a Saturday afternoon, just after noon, when the knock came. A soft, polite knock. 3 taps in quick succession, like someone trying not to draw too much attention. Aaron was in the kitchen, standing with his back to me, slicing apples in perfect, symmetrical quarters. The box rested on the counter beside him, never more than an arm's reach away. I walked to the door, heart racing for reasons I couldn't explain. When I opened it, a woman stood there. She looked like someone I should recognize, like she belonged in the kind of dream that fades seconds after waking. Mid-30s, short hair, streaked with gray at the temples, calm eyes, a blue raincoat. "No umbrella?" She said softly. "I'm looking for someone. I think he's staying here." I didn't answer. "I'm his sister," she added, and the name that followed hit me like a gust of cold wind. She didn't say, "Aaron." She said a different name entirely. "Ale?" I didn't invite her in, I didn't nod, I didn't speak. I just stood there, heartbeat loud in my ears. "Please," she said, softer now. "I'm not here to hurt him, I need to talk to him. You have no idea what he's been through." Behind me, I could hear the fridge humming. The faint clink of a knife against the cutting board. "He's not here." I lied. She looked at me, not suspiciously, not angrily, just with a quiet exhaustion. She handed me a folded piece of paper. "If he comes back, if he's still here, just give him this. Tell him I waited. That I'm not angry, I'm just tired." And then she turned and left. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there for a moment trying to steady my breathing. When I turned around, Aaron was gone. The apple slices were still on the counter, knife perfectly placed on the cutting board, but no sign of him. I called out, "Nothing." Then I checked the bathroom, my bedroom, the hallway closet, nothing. Finally, I opened the door to the small utility room at the back of the apartment. It was barely more than a cubby with the water heater and some old boxes. He was there, standing in the dark. "Why did she come here?" he asked. His voice wasn't angry, it was flat, hollow. "She said she was your sister?" "She's not." "She gave me this." I held out the note. He didn't take it. Instead, he stared at me with an intensity that made me take a step back. "She'll tell you things. She'll say I ran, that I was sick, dangerous, that I hurt people." "Did you?" His silence stretched too long. Then, quietly, "I left for a reason." "What's in the box, Aaron?" He looked down at it, then back at me. But not the kind you think. That makes no sense?" He laughed then, a dry, cracked sound, like someone who hadn't used laughter in years and wasn't sure how it worked anymore. "It doesn't have to." That night, I opened the note. I waited until he was asleep. If that's what you could call the state he entered when he laid down, eyes half shut, body frozen except for the slight rise and fall of breath. The paper was old, folded several times, the creases nearly splitting. It wasn't long. "Ali, you can't keep running. They're not following you anymore. You've been gone too long. Come home. Or at least tell me where you buried the rest of it." It was unsigned. I didn't show it to him. I burned it in the sink. And as the flames curled around the paper, I swear I heard something. A breath, not mine, behind me. A whisper too soft to catch. And for just a second, the mirror above the sink fogged up, as if someone had exhaled against it. I didn't turn around. I just watched the note burn. He knew. The next morning, Aaron, Ely, stood in the hallway, fully dressed, his shoes on, the box already strapped beneath his hoodie. "You read it?" he said. It wasn't a question, he just knew I didn't bother lying. "Yes," he nodded slowly, without anger. "That's good. I expected more. A confrontation, an explanation, but all he did was sit down at the kitchen table and motion for me to join him. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Not all of it. Just enough." I sat. He placed the box on the table between us. It looked older in the morning light. Scratched metal, dull corners. One of the hinges slightly bent as if it had been pried open before. "My name isn't Aaron. But I don't use the other name anymore." I heard her say Eli. He flinched. "That was before." He took a breath. "There was a place," he said. "Not a hospital, not a prison, something in between. They said it was for people like me. People who remembered things they shouldn't." "What does that mean?" He tapped the box. "These aren't memories, they're anchors." I didn't understand. He didn't try to explain. "I escaped," he said, voice flat. "Not because I wanted freedom, but because I realized they weren't trying to help me forget. They were trying to make me disappear." I stayed quiet. There were others. Some of them fought it. Some gave in. I watched a man forget his wife's name right in front of me, watched him forget his own. Then forget how to breathe. He just stopped. And your sister? She worked there? That hit harder than I expected. She wasn't a prisoner, he continued. She was one of the ones holding the door shut. You said she wasn't angry. Just tired. He looked at me then, for the first time in days. She's not the villain, but she's not innocent either. She didn't stop them. She watched. He looked down. I still don't know if she's trying to bring me back, or put me away for good. And the box? He smiled just barely. You keep asking about the box? I nodded. He ran his hand gently along the lid. It's not the contents, it's the weight. Each item is a memory I didn't let them erase. A photo, a smell, a place, even pain, especially pain. When I hold this, I remember who I am. Without it, I'm one of them. I didn't know what to say, but it's unstable now, he added. It's been too long. The things inside want out. I swallowed hard. What happens if they get out? He looked at me almost tenderly. They find new hosts. I understood enough to be afraid. That night, he gave me a key. If something happens to me, he said, you lock the box in the storage locker. Unit AB, you don't open it. You don't try to use it. You forget it ever existed. I can't do that? You can. He looked tired, so tired. I wasn't supposed to make it this far, he said. But I didn't want to go back, so I kept running. I thought I could bury it all. Forget like the rest. But the truth is, I never wanted to forget. He looked at me, his voice soft. That's what makes you real. Not what you remember, but what you refuse to. I nodded slowly. That night we didn't talk, we just existed, two strangers in a place too small for so many secrets. I started noticing them after that conversation, the shadows. At first, it was just peripheral flickers, a movement where there shouldn't have been any, the blur of something ducking just out of sight when I turned my head. You tell yourself it's the wind, reflections, your own nerves playing tricks. But this was different. One night, I saw a shape standing in the hallway mirror. It was tall, indistinct, as if the glass itself had frozen a piece of someone who shouldn't have been there. But when I turned around, no one was behind me. I covered the mirror with a towel. Aaron said nothing, but I saw the way his eyes lingered on the hallway every time he passed. He didn't comment on the covered mirror. He just nodded, almost imperceptibly, like he approved. That week, the air in the apartment began to change. It felt charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. Even my electronics acted up. My phone died randomly. My TV would turn on at 2:13 a.m. every night, always to static. And the whispers got louder. I was brushing my teeth when I heard one say, "He's almost gone." Clear, direct, spoken by no one. Another time, from behind the closed bathroom door, "You saw what he did." But the worst was the night I woke up and saw the box sitting at the foot of my bed. I hadn't touched it. Aaron never let it leave his sight. I shot up, breath caught in my throat, heart pounding. I got out of bed and picked it up gently like it might explode. I brought it to the living room, and there he was, on the couch fast asleep. But without the box, his hands were clenched in fists, his face twisted in distress. Sweat covered his forehead. I placed the box beside him. Within seconds, his face relaxed. He breathed easier. The shadows didn't leave. If anything, they multiplied. At night, I'd hear footsteps above my ceiling, even though I lived on the top floor. Scratching sounds from inside the walls, the sound of a key turning in my lock. But no one was there. I called maintenance once. They found nothing. Aaron began to lose track of time. I'd find him staring at the walls for hours, unmoving. Once I touched his shoulder and he jerked so hard he knocked over a lamp, then stared at it like he didn't understand what he'd done. I asked him, "Were you still here?" He didn't answer. That same night, I caught him talking, not to me, but to the box. "I can't hold all of you," he whispered. "You said there'd be time, but I'm thinning. She's seeing too much." Then he turned, noticed me standing in the hallway, and gave a wan smile. "They're getting louder, aren't they?" I nodded. "I'm sorry," he said. "They never liked witnesses." There was no aggression in his voice, just regret. I started to wonder if he was the one keeping the darkness out or if he'd brought it with him. One night, I locked myself in my room. I'd had enough. I didn't feel safe anymore, not with the lights flickering, the whispers intensifying, the line between sleep and waking blurring. I dreamt that night of a place underground. A corridor lit by pulsing red light. I was walking barefoot, the ground cold, and I was holding the box, but it was heavier than ever. Screaming came from inside it. I woke to the sound of my own name, spoken from outside my door. "Aaron?" No answer. Just the sound of something being dragged across the floor, then silence, then a soft knock on the door. I didn't open it. Morning came, too bright. When I stepped out, the apartment looked normal. The box sat on the coffee table. Aaron was gone. And under the box a note, written in his clean, slanted handwriting, "Don't trust me after the 20th. It was the 19th. I carried that note in my pocket for the rest of the day, folded so tightly it felt like it had always been there. Don't trust me after the 20th? It echoed louder than any whisper. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was building, gathering just under the surface of my world. Aaron Ely was quieter now, more distant even when he was physically near, like the part of him that had been tethered to this place was slowly unraveling. That night I stayed awake, lying on the couch while he sat motionless at the table. The box in front of him, his hands on either side of it, fingers spread, barely touching the metal. It was almost midnight, the last hours of the 19th. I couldn't stop glancing at the clock. "You're afraid of me?" he said suddenly, eyes still on the box. I didn't answer. "I don't blame you," he added. I sat up. "You left this?" I said, pulling the note from my pocket. He finally looked at me. His face was tired, hollowed in ways I hadn't seen before. Not like a man losing sleep, but like someone slowly being erased. "There's something in me," he said. "It's not mine. It's what's left from before, and when the date resets, it won't care what I promised you." "Then we'll leave," I said. "Get out of the apartment. Take the box somewhere else. It doesn't have to happen here." But he just shook his head. "It's not about location. It's about thresholds." I didn't understand, and he didn't explain. Instead, he stood and walked over to the bookshelf, one I hadn't touched in months. He began running his fingers along the spines, slowly, like he was looking for something long forgotten. "What are you doing?" I asked. "There was a message," he said. "I left it for myself, in case I made it this far." He paused, then pulled out a worn paperback, the spine crack, pages yellowed. From inside, he retrieved a folded piece of paper. He opened it, read it, then handed it to me. It was in his own handwriting. "Don't trust me after the 20th, and if I say I'm better, I'm not. You have to run. Don't look back. Don't try to help, let me disappear." I sat back, dizzy. "You knew this was coming," he nodded. "I always knew. But a part of me hoped you wouldn't see it. That I could protect you from it." He looked down at the box again. "They're drawn to the ones who remember. And you remember me?" I started to cry. Not hard, just slow, quiet tears. Not just because of fear, but because I realized this was the most honest he'd ever been. "I don't want to forget you," I whispered. He closed the distance between us and, for the first time, placed the box in my hands. It was cold, so cold it burned. "If you keep this," he said softly, "they'll come for you instead." I stared at the box. Its surface was vibrating gently, like a heartbeat. "What happens if I open it?" "You become the next door." I almost dropped it. He reached out and took it back gently. "I'll stay one more night," he said. "You should pack. Leave tomorrow morning. Don't wait for me." I wanted to argue, wanted to find a solution, but some truths don't bend. That night, I slept in short bursts, heart pounding in my ears, the shadows thicker than ever. I dreamt again, this time of Aaron standing at a cliffside, the box in his hand, surrounded by faceless people whispering from the dark. He looked back once, and mouthed something. I couldn't hear it. I woke to silence, too much silence. The first thing I noticed that morning was the smell. Not something rotten or sore, but clean. Too clean. Like a hospital. Like something trying too hard to cover up decay. I sat up slowly on the couch. The apartment was unnaturally still. No hum of the fridge. No traffic sounds through the window. The air felt frozen. Aaron, no response. I walked through the rooms, cautiously, half expecting to find him in one of his motionless trances. But the apartment was empty. Gone. He was gone. The box was gone too. I checked everything. Under the couch, behind the bookshelf, even in the utility closet. The only thing left behind was a single envelope propped on the kitchen table, addressed to me in his distinct handwriting. Inside a note. I took it far. Somewhere cold. Somewhere they don't like to follow. "If I make it back, I won't remember you. Don't try to remind me. Don't look for me. If someone comes asking, burn this note." I sat down, letting the paper rest in my lap, heart hollow and fluttering. I stared at the empty space where the box had sat for so many nights. The shadows in the corners no longer shifted. The apartment was still again. Still, but not quiet. There was a faint sound. A tapping. It was coming from the front door. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body on edge. I pressed my eye to the peephole. No one there. Just as I was about to step away, a soft knock echoed through the wood. I didn't open it. Instead, I waited, barely breathing, until the knock came again, slower this time. More deliberate. 3 space taps, the same rhythm as the sister's knock. Weak step back. No voice followed. No plea. No second knock. Eventually, I dared to open the door. The hallway was empty. But something was there. A package, small, brown paper, tied with a piece of fraying string. No address, no return label. I brought it inside, locked the door, and placed it on the counter. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. Inside was the box. The same box, but it had changed. The metal was darker now, almost blackened. The corners dented. One side had been scratched violent, as if someone had tried to claw it open. There was a slip of paper taped to the top. One word, run. I dropped it. The lights flickered, and in the reflection of the kitchen window I saw movement behind me. But when I turned, nothing. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't touch the box again. I didn't even look at it. I stayed in the hallway, packed a bag, and by morning I was gone. No forwarding address, no messages. But as I locked the door one last time, I heard a sound from within. A soft click, like a latch being undone. I left the apartment at dawn, just as the city began to stretch and yawn beneath a pale, indifferent sky. I didn't look back. I found a small motel outside town, the kind with numbers stenciled on doors and curtains drawn all day. I paid in cash. No name, no questions. The man at the front desk barely glanced at me. I stayed inside for 2 days. No TV, no phone. I left the box behind, locked in the closet of my old apartment. I told myself that was enough, that I could walk away from it, from him, from all of it. But the third night, the dreams came back. Worse now. In one, I was walking through a forest. The trees bent toward me, whispering my name. I carried the box again, heavier than ever. When I looked down, my hands were stained red or black, I couldn't tell. And then the whispers became words. You saw, you remember. You opened it. I woke gasping. And there, on the nightstand, was the box. I hadn't brought it, I hadn't touched it. But it was there. I backed away, hit the floor, scrambled toward the door. The clerk looked up as I fled. Something wrong? He asked. I couldn't answer. I took a bus out of town. Then another. I stopped using my name, deleted my online accounts, started wearing a hat and sunglasses even at night. I moved through cities like a ghost. But the box kept finding me, always arriving in the same brown paper package, no label, no sound. Once left on the passenger seat of a rental car, once on the steps outside a library, once, terrifyingly, inside a sealed locker at a train station in a city I'd never been to before. Each time, the same note, you saw. It remembers you. I tried burning it. The fire went out before the flames could catch. I tried sinking it in a lake. It was back in my backpack the next morning. Finally, I opened it. I had to. Inside were photographs. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Faces. Places. Some familiar. Others I'd never seen. One of my old apartment, taken from the hallway, through the open front door. Another of me asleep on the couch. Another of Aaron or L.A., standing in the rain the day I met him. Then one that made my stomach drop, a photo of me, from behind, taken at the motel. There was a slip of paper folded among the photos. A list of names. His sister's name was on it, and mine at the bottom. I flipped it over, dates next to each name. Her name had 3 dates. Mine had 1. Tomorrow's date. I closed the box. My hands were shaking. It was never about protecting him. He'd passed it to me. I was next. I checked into another motel that night. Not because I thought I could escape, but because I didn't know what else to do. I was too afraid to stay still, and too exhausted to keep moving. I pushed a dresser against the door, covered the bathroom mirror with a towel, turned off all the lights and sat in the corner with my knees drawn to my chest. The box sat on the edge of the bed, mocking me. Waiting, I thought about running again. A train to nowhere, a bus to the mountains. But I knew it didn't matter. The box would find me. It always did. So I opened it again. This time, I dug deeper. Beneath the photographs was a piece of cloth folded with ceremonial precision. Black silk with a symbol stitched in red thread. 2 interlocking circles, broken by a vertical slash. But when I touched it, a memory surfaced. Not mine. His. Aaron, no, a lie, standing in a cold room lit by a single bulb. Other people in white coats. Machines humming. The box sitting open on a steel table. And someone, screaming from inside it, not with a mouth, but with memory. It lasted a second, maybe less. But when I came back to myself, I was on the floor. The lights were off, the clock had stopped, and the box was closed again. I hadn't touched it. It had moved on its own. That night, the dreams came fast and hard. Eli was there, always just out of reach, running through corridors lined with mirrors. Every reflection showed a different version of him, some old, some childlike, some monstrous. He never looked at me, but he whispered as he ran. I wasn't strong enough. Sorry. I should have burned it. When I woke, I wasn't alone. A figure stood at the foot of the bed, motionless, watching. For one heart-stopping moment, I thought was him. But it wasn't. It was someone else. A woman. Pale, eyes black as ink. Her mouth didn't move, but I heard her voice in my head. He gave you the burden. Now you must feed it. Then she vanished. No sound, no flash. Just gone. The next morning, I called the only number I had left. His sister. The call went to voicemail. But a few hours later, she called back. Her voice was calm, tired. You opened it, didn't you? Yes. A pause. I warned him not to give it to anyone else. What is it? She sighed. Memory, pain, regret. The things the world tries to erase, he collected them, hid them. And then he ran out of room inside himself. So now it's me. Another pause. You can still end it, but not by holding it, not by running. How? You have to give it back? To who? She didn't answer. Just said, find the place he buried the rest. That's where it ends. I was about to ask where, but the line went dead. I looked back at the box. It was vibrating, softly, hungrily. The address came 2 days later, while I slept. No knock, no footsteps, just a slip of paper handwritten, near the white tree, Pine Hollow Cemetery, Lienson 3 p.m. Alone, there was no signature, no instruction. But I knew who had sent it, or rather what had sent it. I rented a car and drove through the night. The roads were empty, stars hidden behind clouds. Every so often, I'd glance in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone, sitting in the back seat. But the only reflection was my own eyes, dark and rimmed with exhaustion. Pine Hollow Cemetery wasn't large. It sat on the edge of a crumbling town, surrounded by a low stone wall and thick woods. I arrived an hour early, parked just outside the gate, and waited. At exactly 11:23 p.m. I stepped into the cemetery. The air was still cold. The kind of cold that settled in your bones, not your skin. I walked slowly, the box tucked beneath my coat. It was heavier now, like it didn't want to be here. I found the white tree easily, an old, twisted pine that had grown sideways before bending back toward the sky. Beneath it, the ground had been disturbed. A rectangle of earth freshly dug and then half covered again, like someone had changed their mind mid-burial. I dropped to my knees and brushed away the loose dirt. There was a wooden lid beneath. Another box. No, the same box. I looked down at the one in my hands. Still there, still humming. I opened the grave box. Inside were more photographs, more names, but older, faded, brittle, as if time itself had tried to erase them. And at the bottom, a notebook. I opened it, hands trembling. Every page was filled with entries. Not in Aaron's handwriting, but dozens of others, generations maybe. Each entry began with a name, then a memory, then a date. Then, finally, a phrase repeated again and again. The burden must move. I understood then. This wasn't Aaron's curse. It wasn't even personal. It was a cycle, a container for collective memory. The pain people wanted to forget. It had passed through many hands, each person holding it a little longer, feeding it with their own regrets, their own ghosts. And now, it was mine. But it didn't have to be. I took the box from my coat, set it gently in the grave. I placed the notebook, then the photos, then the silk cloth. And I spoke aloud. I remember. The air grew still, colder. The box vibrated once more. I waited. Minutes passed. No wind, no whispers. Then a sound behind me. Footsteps. I turned. It was him, Aaron, or the shadow of who he'd been. He looked thinner, paler, his eyes distant, but he was whole. I thought I lost you, he said quietly. I thought I'd become you, I replied. He shook his head. You were stronger. No, I said. Just lucky we didn't cry. He knelt beside me, stared at the box. You left enough clues. I didn't think I'd remember. You didn't. He looked up at me. But you did. We buried the box together. No words, no ceremony, just dirt and silence. When it was done, he looked at me one last time. You can forget now, he said. If you want to. I thought about it, then shook my head. No, I said. I'll carry it, just not the box. He nodded, and then he walked away. I never saw him again. Not in dreams, not in reflections, not in shadows. I moved away, changed my name, started over. But sometimes when the wind is just right, I hear a whisper behind me. A memory I didn't know I had, not scary, just lingering, like a story waiting to be told. I met a stranger on a rainy night. A man without a name, carrying a box that held more than secrets. I offered him kindness. He offered me silence. What followed was not love, not even friendship, but a slow descent into a shared nightmare. He brought with him shadows, whispers, and a past that didn't belong to either of us. And when he vanished, he left behind the burden, a box that remembered more than it ever should have. I tried to outrun it. I failed. I tried to destroy it. It wouldn't let me. Only by finding the place where it all began could I bury it for good. But the memories stay, not in the box, but in me. These stories show the consequences and limits of trusting strangers. If you've ever welcomed someone into your life and discovered something you couldn't explain, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more.